Sounds good on the same point. Welcome to another exciting episode of Hope Speaks. I'm live here at Hope Chiropractic Center with Karl Monger, founder of Gallant Few.
Joey, great to be here.
Awesome, thank you, sir. So we're gonna get started today and just jump right on in. And I wanted to start with asking, for those who don't know, what is Gallant Few?
Gallant Few. Gallant is the southern pronunciation.
Gallant.
So Gallant Few is it's funny because some of the rangers we work with, they're like Gallant, so they make it like 8 syllables.
Where are they from?
It's deep south.
Oh.
Yeah, Alabama, Georgia.
Yeah.
Gallant Few is a nonprofit 501c3 that serves veterans. We've been 501c3 since 2010. We've been operating unofficially on a volunteer basis all the way back, I could say, to 2005.
Awesome.
But as a real official organization, 2010. In 2013, we were able to bring on professional staff. We did some fundraisers to raise some money, and so we help, I think last year was somewhere around 500 veterans.
That's amazing. That's huge. And so what is the mission? So what's your guys' goal?
Sure, our mission is to help every veteran transition to a civilian life of purpose and hope. Because the things that lead a veteran into trouble are loss of purpose,
okay,
which leads to a lot of times isolation. They don't want to admit what they see as weakness. If they have difficulty going into a crowded restaurant, for instance, because of post-traumatic stress, they don't want to tell somebody, I have trouble going into a restaurant because of post-traumatic stress. They just say, no, I don't want to go out. So you have to, based on our relationships, we're able to say, we know you're dealing with this.
Sure.
So you don't have to tell me.
Sure.
So now let's talk about ways that we can provide resources that can help you be comfortable when you go into a situation like that, or ways that you can change the way that your brain operates so that you don't get the panic sense of being trapped when you go into a crowded situation. So it's a lot about lessons learned, applying that to that veteran as they go through their transitional journey.
Sure.
When you have a veteran, let's say a Vietnam veteran,
okay,
that has established their own business and they've been successful in a community and they belong to Rotary clubs and Chambers of Commerce and Kiwanis clubs and church groups, and they have a very robust personal and professional life. When a young veteran comes to a community, they don't know they can visit a Rotary club or go to a Chamber of Commerce mixer, but the Vietnam veteran does know that. So he or she can drag that younger veteran out into an environment where all of a sudden they start meeting people.
That's huge.
And it's absolutely huge.
That's super important.
And veterans like to, if they're able, hire other veterans.
Yes.
But there's not a very good mechanism by the government to make those connections happen. So
I would imagine there's so many organizations that actually do it, right? That it's very hard to find a way to capture all of them.
yes and no.
And plug into the VA.
That's the hard stuff,
Yeah.
right? Because the VA is very focused on providing mental and physical health care.
Sure.
And they really are less interested in helping a veteran find a job. I mean, they may say they are.
Okay.
But the mechanism really doesn't exist across that governmental barrier to the private side.
Sure.
So you have a veteran that's coming back and they have been given the benefit of transitional training from the government.
Sure.
And my own personal philosophy is the military's job is to break things and kill people in pursuit of our national interest, right? We're
Yes.
threatened to do those things so that other countries won't do bad things against us.
Yes.
It's not their job to take that soldier and make them a civilian.
Sure.
If you work for Google for 10 years, is it Google's job to train you to go work for Yahoo?
No.
No, right? So Google says, thank you very much, and maybe here's a severance check if you've been here long enough.
Sure.
But see you later, goodbye.
Yeah.
Have a nice life. In my opinion, the military probably owes a little bit more than that, have a nice life as they go out, but the government cannot provide a robust transitional training program in an area they don't know anything about.
That's very
The government doesn't know how to transition. They don't know how to be civilians. They
Sure.
don't know how to do civilian business. There's
Sure.
examples, a million examples of how the government mismanages trying to do private stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's why you want private entities to do those things.
Sure.
So, and they're different everywhere you go. San Diego is different than Dallas. It's different than New York. It's different than Miami. But the government has a one-size-fits-all, follow this checklist, dress like this, talk like this, do a resume like this, upload to a corporate database like this, and life will be good. And then what happens is life isn't good because nobody calls them back for an interview.
Yeah.
They have trouble fitting in if they go to school with the other kids that are a lot less mature than them because they don't have the life experiences. All those things are very frustrating to that veteran. And it's all things that take them off of their transitional azimuth, which causes them to move into the isolation mode because they don't want to admit weakness. They don't want to say, yeah, I was real successful as an Army Ranger, but now I can't get a job working anywhere.
That's hurt.
Yeah,
That has to
so
be super painful.
then they isolate.
Yeah.
And a lot of times to cope with that, they drink. And the drinking, the isolation, that causes money problems, it causes relationship problems, it causes health problems.
Just a downhill spiral.
That's right.
That's it.
And in taken to an extreme, it only ends one way, and that's in a pine box.
Yeah.
And that happened to my grandfather. My grandfather served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam as an infantryman, and died in 1977 in Denver in a men's shelter, isolated from family and friends. He was an alcoholic.
How sad.
My father told me years later that everything he owned fit in a shoebox. And for a soldier that gave that much of his life
Sure.
to the country, that's a terrible way. I mean, what does that say about our community? That there is a lot of individual responsibility. I'm a total believer in that, but where's the community responsibility?
There's both.
That,
You have to have two.
didn't engage,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you have a warrior that spent all of that time. You look at the Native American traditions, a warrior is brought back into the tribe, they're welcomed, they're celebrated, and the tribe makes a special effort to, because of the sacrifices they've made, to help them have a life,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
We don't do that as a society. Our country says, hey, thanks for serving, I got a yellow ribbon on my car, good job, you know. But that's where it stops.
Yes, it does.
And it's
Yeah.
a lot harder to say, and I'm going to introduce you to my best friend who has a business and maybe there's a job, and oh, by the way, you know, why don't you come to dinner with my family tonight because I'd like to get you. That does not happen. So
Okay.
but seeing a veteran in a restaurant and buying them dessert or sending a beer to their
count.
table
Doesn't count.
does not.
No, it doesn't even
help,
give it.
doesn't
Doesn't
help.
give the
It
foundation.
just makes them
necessary.
uncomfortable, and it makes them not want to come back to that restaurant. So
This is a point I never thought of.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through a few concepts here you just touched on. So one was you discussed the idea that like a Vietnam vet belongs to a Rotary, and then he connects with another younger vet to help him get integrated in the community, which it can be a big influence. And so where did this idea come about? How did you figure out the idea to say, okay, listen, we've had some people who are successful, they've transitioned. How can we link them up? Because sometimes it could also be vice versa.
Right.
You could have the guy from Iraq who's very successful in integration helping the Vietnam
Absolutely.
vet come
Absolutely.
out.
Yeah.
And they both have that similar experience. However, maybe both of them are necessary to help the other one grow.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Because I've worked with Vietnam veterans that have left the military 40, 45 years ago,
Sure.
and they're still struggling with a sense of purpose.
Sure.
And sometimes that has led to very bad life choices and circumstances that are damaging. So I mentioned my grandfather.
Yes.
I am firmly convinced that because of his military service, he had post-traumatic stress and probably traumatic brain injury
Sure.
that led into the self-medication and the other things. He threw my dad out of the house when my dad was 16.
That's super
My
tough.
dad ultimately retired as a sergeant major in the Army,
Sure.
but he left my family when I was about 3. And my sister was 2 years younger than me, my mom was pregnant.
Wow.
And so, talk about, this
Just
is
life circumstances.
this is mid-60s, and divorce was not nearly as prevalent then as it is now. And so we went through a period of time where we lived with other family. My grandfather, my mother's father, took us in for a while, and then my mom worked her tail off to get her college degree because she didn't have a college degree. And so, as a young man, 8, 9 years old, I'm fixing dinner for my 2 younger sisters because mom is at night school. And that's something that today would get mom thrown in jail for child abuse. But that that was a different time.
Yeah.
And in the and I've got to say, I think that one of the reasons that my dad left was because of the example that his father set. It's one of those things that flows downstream, and because he left, there's been impact on my family. I've been divorced. I have a younger sister that's been divorced several times. When you have that event that tears a family apart like that, it goes forward into time, and it affects
Generational.
many, many more people down the road.
I had a guy I met the other day, he called it the generational father wound, is
Yeah.
what he called it.
Yeah, it's terrible. And in many cases on the military side, I think it's avoidable.
Sure.
So in the late 60s, this brand new program started called Big Brothers.
Awesome.
And I was one of the first little brothers to be put into this program. And I think I was probably 8 or 9 years old when it happened. I got matched to an attorney named Dave Adams who drove a white convertible Stingray,
Wow.
1968,
That's an
69
awesome car.
model. And Yeah, and it made a difference. I mean, I still remember the first time that we met, and here's this guy that was successful, did not need to be involved in my family.
Sure.
But he comes and takes me to go to a movie or to make model airplanes or to do whatever.
Yeah.
And not only did it influence me, but it also impacted my sisters because they saw this guy that gave of himself to come be a part of our family. A few years later, my mom remarried, and then I had a stepdad who ultimately adopted me, so my last name changed. When I got into college, I became a big brother. As soon as I turned 18 and I could mentor, I signed up to volunteer to mentor a youth. And then after college, I went in the Army. When I came back, and it had made such an impact on me that every paycheck that I got in the Army, I sent $10 back to the agency.
How awesome is that?
Yeah, so for 10 years, I always had this coming out of it. Just an indicator of how much it meant to me.
Yes, huge.
So then I leave active duty and I struggle in my own transition. And for time now, I won't go into that, but many veterans, if they don't retire from the military or they don't get to achieve their goal, whether
Sure.
they get injured, or in my case, I had a lot of friends that were killed, it changes your priorities, and then you make sometimes very sudden decisions to get out of the military.
Sure.
And then you sit back and you go, why did I do that? But then it's too late, right? Because
you're done.
you're on this path to do something, you're part of this phenomenal team, and then now you're trying to just make money. And
Yes.
it's very difficult to recreate that sense of purpose. Well, I had a buddy of mine that was a veteran himself. He knew his transition plan. He'd gotten out before me, and when he saw that I was struggling, he reached out, drugged me kicking and screaming to work for him. And he taught me a number of things. And I remember he wanted me to sell construction equipment for a dealership that he was now being promoted to run. And I said, I don't know anything about construction equipment, and I don't have a great opinion of salespeople. So
Two negatives already.
I think this is a recipe for disaster for both of us. And he said, well, let me tell you, I can teach the iron, I can teach the sales, but discipline, integrity, and the ability to learn are not things you can teach. And you've demonstrated them over and over again in the military. So if you decide you want to take a chance on this, and you apply yourself to it with the discipline, integrity, and the ability to learn that
Sure.
you have, I'll make sure that you're successful. And
Sure.
so I took a chance and went to work for him. Loved it.
Awesome.
Made decent money, and then quit on him and went to work for another company because now I got a big ego
Like a Booyah thing, right?
well, yeah, a headhunter reached
Yeah.
out to me and said, "Hey, we'll pay you this to go jump
Yeah.
to this field." So I went and did that for a couple of years, and then that public company fell apart, and my buddy hired me to come back and work for him again. Now he had
Awesome.
moved to a completely different sector of that industry.
Yeah.
But now he wanted me to run a branch operation of a public construction equipment company. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I quit on him again because the Big Brothers Big Sisters agency that I'd been a kid in was looking for the second executive director in their history.
Oh,
And
man.
so I threw my hat in the ring, and they took a chance and they hired me. So I went for 2 years and I ran that agency.
Okay.
And then I went back into the construction field again
Yeah.
and did that until 2009, when I decided I would start trying to figure out how to do things on my own rather than working
Sure.
for other people. So I had stayed kind of connected in the reserve system
Yeah.
until I had back surgery and some other things happened, so I went inactive. But through that process, I got promoted to major. So officially I'm a major, a retired major from the Army. But when 9/11 happened, the group that parachuted into Afghanistan, October of 2001, were friends of mine. It was led by
Wow.
the guy whose office I'd walked into and said, "Hey Joe, I'm quitting, I'm leaving the Army." And so talk about a bittersweet moment. So I'm
Yeah.
so proud of them,
Sure.
but I'm thinking, man, if only I'd stayed in, could I have been part of this historical
Yes.
thing? So
Yes.
there are all kinds of emotions and things that
Sure.
run around it, and that can cause your mind to poison
You can't.
yourself
Yeah, you can
because
choose the what ifs.
now you're all, why didn't I do this? Now my life is meaningless, and look at what my friends have done, and that's a common thing that a lot of veterans deal with. I didn't realize how common it was at the time. So I go back to on invite. So backing up, after it happened, I'm still in the military system, email system. So I email the Ranger Regimental Commander, a guy named Joe Votel, and I say, "Hey Joe, I'm proud of you. I'm jealous. I wish I was there. Please give everybody my regards." And he invited me to come to his change of command, which was in 2003 in the summer. And that's a big, big event. All Rangers from all eras. There were World War II Rangers there. Everybody comes back. It's a big, politicians come. It's a big hoopla.
It's huge, yeah.
Huge. And it only happens every 2 years when the Ranger Regiment changes command. And now this is the first time after war when the entire regiment had been continuously deploying in the fight. And even today, the Ranger Regiment is the only unit in the Army that has been continuously at battalion size deployed in the War on Terror. There are always Rangers fighting around the world. Right now as we speak, there are Rangers probably kicking indoors somewhere on the other side of the earth.
Wow.
So I go back and I start talking to some of my old friends, and I can see that the system, the governmental system, was not set up to care for them in providing
Perfect.
emotional support, in providing, a big tough Army Ranger that's been kicking indoors in Afghanistan is not going to come home, sit down with a therapist and say, I had trouble sleeping at night.
No, that's just the last thing we're going to admit.
Not going to happen, right? So they drink to hide it, or they work out like fiends to hide it. They do something to try to cover that or mask that. And a lot of times that can end in problems. They can get a DUI, and now they're out of the unit, or they can
You hurt yourself over training.
Get injured in training. They can have a bad relationship. There are a million things that can happen. Or some of them saw their buddies torn up or killed, and it changed their priorities. Like when I left, and then they make a sudden decision to get out, and now they're full of regret and guilt. And maybe they were there, and their buddy died, and they felt like it should have been them, or they should have saved their life. So all of these things are going on. And now I have the benefit of a lot of great sales and marketing training. I thought by that time I had become a pretty good networker.
Yeah.
So I went and established initially on LinkedIn the first Ranger social networking group called U.S. Army Rangers. And
unbelievable.
And over the next 6 years, it grew to be 1,000 guys. And I personally verified every veteran, every Ranger that came into the group. And as they came into the group, I would ask them, who are you? Where are you going? What do you want to do? Do you have a job? And if they had a job, I was like, okay, I'll get back to you later. If they're looking for a job, I would say, did you know there's a Ranger in your zip code? Let me get you guys connected. Maybe can help you out. So that one-on-one connection, and I'm thinking, well, this is kind of like Big Brothers Big Sisters, because we're connecting people that are successful in the community with people that are entering or struggling or trying to overcome certain things that are stacked up against them. And that was working so well that at the end of 2009, I wrote a white paper about this Ranger mentoring system, and that ultimately turned into Gallant Few in 2010 as a nonprofit. And the intent was Army Rangers. That was it.
That was it?
That was it.
And I imagine it's a small number of people, though.
Well, it's a fairly small percent. Veterans overall are a very small percent of the population.
Sure, but of the veteran population, Rangers are even smaller.
That's right. If you know somebody that says they're an Army Ranger, they probably aren't. Yeah. So there are more that claim they are than really are. But that community, and in microcosms, there's Marines are very similar to Army Rangers. They're very proud individuals. They're driven to excellence.
Yes.
And then when they're no longer active duty Marines, they go through a very similar.
They still wish they were Marines.
Type of process.
Sure.
That's right. They don't understand the way. Why did you walk past a piece of trash on the sidewalk? Come on, dude, pick it up. Even though they're just a high school kid or something.
Yes.
And so you'll see veterans sometimes they'll go pick up trash and throw it away, and people are like, "Why are you picking up that trash?" Well, because it's trash, right?
Yes.
It needs to go in the trash. But that's a totally separate thing. But it's a mindset. It's difficult to understand that other mindset. And as the guy that had mentored me through my first big civilian job was not a Ranger, didn't do special operations. He was an infantry guy, straight commanded a company of Bradleys, which are like tanks in Germany.
Sure.
And he sat down with me and he said, and he had motivated me initially to start with the first $100 donation to say, here's $100, go start your nonprofit. So he became one of the founding board members. So right off the bat, he said, you have a pretty good concept, but what are you doing for veterans like me? And meeting him. And I'm like, ooh, gosh, this will work for any veteran, so let's expand. So we started looking at how can we help Marines and Air Force. And so now any veteran, any branch of the service, we started off saying only honorably discharged veterans, and then I started running into veterans who had other than honorable discharges because of misbehaviors that I believe are tied to post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury.
Fair.
And now they have a DUI or they've misbehaved and not showed up for formation, and now they get labeled a dirtbag and they get shuffled out of the system. Well, a veteran with an other than honorable discharge can't get a job because most job applications say, are you a veteran? Yes, no. Honorable discharge? Yes, no. If they say no, they're not getting a call.
Yes, that's that.
Yeah, and if they say yes, now they've lied on their job application,
Yeah.
and they are stuck in a hard place.
Sure.
And in terms of the VA, a lot of times those veterans, by the nature of their discharge, the VA won't provide them services. They just, over the last, I want to say, year and a half, now they will provide mental health support to a veteran with a dishonorable discharge, but
Sure.
years ago they wouldn't do it.
No, they won't touch them.
So, what's that person supposed to do, right?
Sure.
And so we engage with anybody. Now, if they're a serial killer or a rapist and we find that out, then we're probably going to say, you know what, we're not the right ones for you. But if we can say your misbehavior that caused that discharge is tied to an injury,
Sure.
then we're going to do everything we can to overturn that, to help them get it raised to an honorable, but then provide them the kind of help that they need to get a job. And the only way you do that is by one-on-one connection. You say, hey, Joe, this guy is really good. I got to be honest with you. He got a DUI, got an other than honorable discharge, but please give him a chance.
Yes.
Those kinds of things work with jobs.
That's
right?
huge. It does, yes.
It's who
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
It's your personal network. So we try to expand that every way we
Huge.
can.
So in that standpoint then, I imagine that from the Gallant Few perspective, or from Gallant Few's perspective, that you take care of the members in multiple facets. I know that you guys have a star for your logo, and in that I recollect that you discussed that everybody comes to us in a different form of brokenness. And so from that, you can help evaluate that 5-step process, which
Yeah.
represents the points of the star.
Yeah, and we don't refer to it as brokenness.
Okay,
because
what do
that's
you
a
call it?
negative term.
Okay, what
right?
do we call
So we talk levels of fitness.
Levels of fitness.
Yeah,
Great.
so if your level of fitness is low,
Sure.
you're not broken.
No.
You're just, your level of fitness is low. So
Yeah.
what can we do to raise it? So
Perfect.
our STAR model, STAR stands for self-training and responsibility. We could call it STAR A because we say responsibility. And stealing from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you have the ability to choose your response to any situation you're in front of. You just have to learn the ability to do it. Because, I could say, I'm done with this interview, I could walk out right now. That'd be my choice. Or
Sure.
I can decide to stay here and finish.
Yeah.
I
your
can
choice.
I can make a choice to order a beer or water. I can make a choice to respond to somebody on the highway in anger or friendship. right?
Perfect.
But a lot of veterans believe they don't have a choice. I have to take that drink, or I have to respond in anger, or I have to do X, Y, or Z because of these things that have happened to me. So we do things to help them measure their levels of fitness in 5 different areas that we call them the 5 points of the STAR. And each one is an area of functional fitness.
Perfect.
So functional is, you can use it in everyday life. It's
Yes.
not theoretical fitness, right? And fitness means you can measure it. And if you can measure it, then you can improve it. So how do you measure wellness?
You don't.
You can't.
It's an abstract term. That's
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah, so we talk, the first and obvious one is functional physical fitness. And you know from your profession, if you have somebody that every winter they want to go snow skiing, then during the summertime, they should be doing a health and fitness plan that gets them ready so they can have a great vacation when they go snow skiing.
Not just-
If everything that they do during the summertime is geared towards something else, then the first day they go snow skiing, they're either going to hurt themselves or be so sore they can't do it the second day, right? So
Yeah.
you want to gear your functional physical fitness towards your everyday activities and your fun activities.
Perfect.
Functional emotional fitness is the foundation of the 5 points, and it permeates really everything else. And we use a system called Burris Functional Emotional Fitness Coaching. Before Dr. Burris met me, he called it Burris Emotional Wellness Coaching. And I got him to change his terminology across all his programs. But that is aimed at understanding how your subconscious can sabotage you, how your subconscious directs everything that you do every day,
Sure.
and how you can intentionally direct your subconscious to help you achieve your objective.
Perfect.
We talk objectives because in the military you attack objectives, you don't attack goals.
Yes.
So don't ask me what are my goals, but ask me what are my objectives, right? So as we move towards our objectives, what things are preventing us from getting there? And using visualization and using some internal self-talk and questioning, we help them overcome whether they want to quit smoking or lose weight or improve a relationship with a spouse or get a better job or whatever that is. These are all geared towards helping them accomplish those. Third one is functional spiritual fitness. Okay, we don't care if you're Buddhist or Catholic or Protestant.
Doesn't matter. That's
What
that
we
point.
care is, do you have a sense of purpose? Are you connected to other people on the earth? Or do you give of yourself? Even someone who doesn't have a dollar to their name can still go volunteer at the food bank and serve homeless people, right?
Sure.
So they can go to the dog pound and they can help volunteer walking dogs that need attention. Until you get out of the little hell that you create for yourself and see that somebody else's existence might be worse, you're not putting things in perspective.
Sure.
And when you are able to put things in perspective, then you can kind of crack that open and start to learn how you might be able to grow. So functional spiritual fitness is an important part of that. And if through that process somebody wants to be connected with a faith-based organization, we facilitate that happening. And in fact, we have an Army veteran chaplain who on Facebook has Vet Church. It's a closed group, it's a Facebook group. You can just search Vet Church and you're going to find it and you can ask to join it. And a couple of times a week he goes live on Vet Church and may do a 3 or 5 minute talk, and then he opens it up and lets people ask questions and have a discussion. And phenomenal guy. He's going to be here the end of October when we have that expo.
Awesome.
It'll be one of the resources we have here. Let's see, functional professional fitness
Okay.
is your education. If you're a veteran using the GI Bill, you want to make sure that you leverage that to best advantage. It's money management. Do you have a budget? Are you sticking to your budget? Excuse me. Are you saving money?
Perfect.
A lot of times a veteran will get a lump sum distribution for, if the VA's been working on their disability for 5 years, now they get 5 years of a lump sum disability tax-free check, and they don't save it. They go out and they buy the biggest motorcycle or F-350,000 pickup truck, whatever, right, they can do.
Sure.
Because they're thinking short-term reward,
Sure.
and they're not thinking, how am I going to maintain the insurance on that or pay the
No,
gas or,
yeah.
or whatever it is down the road. And that can really get them into trouble. And then your professional network. If you're done with school or even if you're in school, getting them connected with a professional network.
Huge.
Veterans, if you want to be an accountant, who better to help you through that process than a veteran who is a CPA, maybe owns a firm locally, because now you can talk who's the best professors in the school,
Sure.
there could be an alumni association. Do you have internships, summer jobs, and then even a job after they graduate? The last one is functional social fitness.
Cool.
Veterans that go into the military, before they become veterans, when they show up at basic training or their first unit, they're not taught this wine goes with this cheese when it comes to alcohol, right? They're taught there's a bunch of beer, let's go drink it all and break something.
Yeah.
And that's the way they learn to party and blow off steam. And then when they leave the military, that's how they've been trained. So they default to going to a bar, to drinking a lot. How do you have fun? Well, I go to a bar. There are lots of other ways to meet people than going to a bar, but they have to be educated because they don't know. They don't know about the social aspect of a Rotary Club or a Chamber of Commerce or these
Sure.
other things. So educating them, and the people that live locally, the veterans that live locally, they know what those things are. And I'm a life member of the VFW, and I belong to the American Legion. And those posts are not providing the environments that young veterans want to go into. They're full of cigarette smoke in most cases. They're not super welcoming environments. And all you have to do is walk into one to see
Sure.
who's there. And it's not young veterans.
No.
And
I think older guys when I think of VFW. Like Vietnam
but
or even older.
it's a wonderful concept,
Sure.
and they should be doing what I'm doing.
Yes.
The VFW is the American Legion. Gallup Few should not exist because they should be doing that.
Sure.
But they're not doing it, so we have to exist because the
Yes.
service has to be provided. So those are the 5 points of the STAR. When a veteran comes into our system, whether they're volunteering to be a mentor, we call them a guide, or they're asking for help, we call them a future guide, because after they transition, we're going to expect them to
You're
be a
gonna
guide.
Sure.
They do a 25-question survey with 5 questions on each point of the STAR. So that's where we start measuring your level of fitness.
Can anybody take that test?
Anybody can take the test.
Cool.
But to be in our system and do it in our digital format, you got to be a veteran.
That's
But
perfect.
I can provide it to anybody just on a piece of paper
Sure.
if they want to look at it and
Sure.
take it. And I'm working on a workbook that's going to be published in.
That'd be huge. It would help. I think most people would actually benefit from the idea that the
Yeah.
5 levels of fitness. And
Oh,
how
they apply to anybody.
They apply to
Doesn't.
anybody.
It doesn't say veteran in any of the questions.
Hey guys, what's going on? Dr. Joey Kramer here. Our video camera ended up missing the last 9 minutes of our interview with Karl. My battery ended up dying. So what I want to leave you with is at the end of it, we discussed a few things talking about really how to engage Gallant Few. And there's a few options that we have coming up. Number one is going to be gallantfew.org. That's GALLANTFEW.org. And then also we wanted to discuss and let you all know, coming up we have an amazing opportunity this fall. It's in October. It's going to be at the Marriott right next to Texas Motor Speedway. It is called the Vet Expo, VETEXPO.com. And we have a great seminar that's going to be presented to the veteran community in the area of Dallas-Fort Worth. And we're going to have multiple people flying in from all over the country to engage our veterans and their families and to give them an opportunity to work at some of the areas of focus surrounding transition and getting back into private sector. So from that, check us out, go see what's going on with that, and we hope you all enjoyed the podcast. Karl is a super dynamic individual. We love getting to have him featured on Hope Speaks. And if you or anyone you work with is a veteran organization located in Dallas, Texas, or Fort Worth, Texas, or our Metroplex, and you would love to be featured on Hope Speaks to share your message on how you help veterans, give us a shout, joey@hopesouthlake.com. I'll hook you guys up, we'll get set up, and we'll film your story. You guys have an awesome rest of your day.